Hey everybody, thanks for checking out this video demoing and kind of comparing these Zildjian S Series Dark Cymbals. 20-inch ride, 18-inch crash, 16-inch crash, 14-inch hi-hats. There is also an 18-inch China available, which I do not have. So, I'll get to the playing right away because that's what you came for. And then I'll make some kind of general observations, thoughts, physical differences and characteristics between the cymbals and the line, all of that stuff. But I'll get to the playing now. Just going to do some simple playing to highlight the cymbals in a variety of volumes, tempos, and styles. So here we go. I'll play them all individually first. to just do some simple playing to demonstrate what these cymbals can kind of do and how they sound: soft, loud, medium, jazz, Latin, rock, whatever. So, a couple of observations about the cymbals. This is just my personal opinion, but I think that Zildjian named them wrong. They should have named them S Dry and not S Dark. Now, they are darker than like a normal S Series cymbal, which is B12 alloy instead of B20, which is fairly bright. These cymbals are definitely darker than normal S cymbals, but I wouldn't like necessarily, compared to like, say, a Paiste Masters or a Bosphorus or a Dream or a Zildjian K Constantinople, I wouldn't necessarily call this dark. Not a bad thing, but the crashes are so dry. Probably dry is a better name, more apropos, but they are in a dark sense too. So I would say the ride, I'll have the weights down below in the description. The ride is probably in the medium range, maybe just on the tad bit like lighter side of medium, but it's about as medium kind of as you would expect. To me, the ride it's got a nice ping, but it's pretty controlled. Personally, I don't know how it's coming across on that camera, I think it sounds like a regular plain A Zildjian medium ride with a few strips of tape on the bottom is what it sounds like to me. It is more controlled, and when you crash on it, it does fade away a little faster than if you were crashing on, say, like a medium ride. You can hear right there that it's... So it sounds to me like, if I had my eyes closed, I would say this is an A Zildjian medium ride with some tape on the bottom. The crashes are very thin, very dry, and they don't have a lot of sustain, obviously. I think the 18 even has less sustain than the 16, but very thin, very dry, get out of the way quick, and they're not high-pitched necessarily, so they're going to blend in more with the context of a band or an ensemble versus being kind of bright and pingy and high-pitched. They have a nice kind of what I call like a bitey attack to them. They have a nice bite, but then they just fade away real quick. The hi-hats are pretty good all-purpose hi-hats. They can be loud. They've got a nice kind of heavier sounding chick feeling. Bottom cymbal is nice and heavy. Very nice sounding. These are good all-purpose type hi-hats. This is, I would say, pretty good all-purpose medium ride. The crashes, I wouldn't necessarily call them all-purpose. If you're looking for just two basic crash cymbals to kind of cover a wide variety of gigs, these aren't the cymbals to use. Not to say that they're bad, but these are specialty for, these would make really good like quieter cymbals if you need to play, like if you're doing like an unplugged gig or a coffee house gig or a gig in a smaller venue, and you don't necessarily want to go out and buy like really super dark thin cymbals. I think these could fit the bill pretty nicely because they can be played pretty quietly. And even, their crashes, if you play them with the tip of the stick, they have some good clarity to them. So you don't necessarily have to hit them with the shoulder. You can just do a light crash with them, and they still stay nice and controlled. Also, if you need to play quieter, maybe this 20-inch ride's too much, maybe this is your main ride at a nice quiet gig. And that's a secondary ride maybe. So they're versatile cymbals, you can use them in that respect. I don't think they can cover a wide variety of music. This is pretty specific, they've got their own sound and they're pretty controlled. But good for low volume, good maybe for some studio or recording or for some effects too, just like you want something really quick and get out of the way. that's definitely a good cymbal for that. A couple of characteristics on the cymbals: they have the proprietary dark finish on all of the cymbals. They also have the very large hammer marks that you can see that are raised, and you can really feel them. You can probably even like run your stick over them and kind of do that. So they definitely are raised very much. Oddly enough, they all have this hammering, except the bottom hi-hat does not have the raised hammering. It has the hammering that, the non-raised hammering, it's got the same, but the bottom hi-hat, and I'll show that in the video, the bottom hi-hat does not have that hammering. So just as a comparison, this is the top hi-hat, and you can see the very pronounced, random, very large hammering, and you can see underneath that they are dense. These are very, you can definitely run your finger over them and feel how deep that they are. Now the bottom hi-hat cymbal does not have those dents, as you can see. It's got that same hammering, I'll take it off of here, but those big dents are not present on the bottom hi-hat cymbal. So I don't know if you could notice in the video or not, but the bottom hi-hat cymbal has probably the most sustain. It's heavy, of course, but it's got probably the most sustain out of all of the cymbals, including the ride. Still going, still going, still going, and here's the ride. So I still think, even though the ride's a lot bigger, it still decays faster than that bottom hi-hat. I think those large hammer marks do a lot to help control the sustain and really dry them out. Another thing I wanted to point out is that all of the cymbals have, like I would call, normal shaped bells, except for the 18. And I don't know if this was on purpose on the 18, but if you look, try to show it kind of sideways here. If you look at that bell, the bell's very flat. It's very flat, especially on top. Like this part here, the bell is very flat. It almost looks like a bell you would find like on a China cymbal. Very flat bell. It looks like a normal bell was like flattened down, like somebody accidentally stepped on it or something. Because if you look at the bell over here on the ride, normal bell, kind of a bell you'd see on a medium type ride, and then the bell on the crash, and I can take the wing nut off of this one too, but the bell on this crash also fairly normal. It's not really compressed like the 18. It is a little bit flat on top, but it's not nearly as extreme as it is on the 18. So, very good cymbal set. I think the ride and the hi-hats are very good all-purpose kind of cymbals. The hi-hats especially, I think, are probably the best out of all of these. That's not to say the rest of them are bad, though. Again, the cymbals, the crash cymbals, you can use as even like lighter rides, or if you want to play a quieter gig, I mean, you can still just tap it lightly and get some sound out of it. You know, so the crashes aren't going to probably cut in a louder environment. They may make a good specialty cymbal every once in a while. I also think, like, even for like a straight ahead, like, you know, trio or quartet or bebop gig, I think the 18 might sound really cool with, like, you know, 2 or 3 rivets in it maybe. Can't do that on most 18-inch crashes, so it kind of almost reminds me a little bit of those Jojo Mayer signature Sabian cymbals. They were called Fierce. They kind of remind me of that a little bit. Very dry, very controlled. It's kind of Jojo Mayer-ish sounding, but I think this might sound really cool on like a straight ahead gig. Maybe put 2 or 3 rivets in it. It's pretty thin, so I wouldn't go beyond 2 or 3 rivets, but that might sound pretty cool. So there you have it. I'll put links and the drums and the heads and everything I'm using in the description. But thanks for checking this out. Hope you liked it.